Evil Squid Comics Podcast. We are part of the Collector's Maze Network.
Don.
Scott.
And Drew.
I read Wild Blue Yonder. And who was that? Mike Reich and Zach Howard involved in this. And a bunch of others. But I know you don't like me talking about that. But anyway.
Don't like talking about what?
Who wrote it or who was involved. He
I'll
just
just cut it out.
He just wants me to get right to the thing. Going, do I like it? What's the story? Whatever else. But I feel like people, especially when it's something that I enjoyed, I want to throw out some cred there. So, and this is really pretty good. I mean, it's got this kind of, what would you say, kind of alternate universe, little steampunk going on. Aspect where post-apocalyptic, the earth we've burned it out, and we got to get off the land as much as possible because it's just worthless, radiation, poisoning, and all sorts of things. The only place that's really safe is up in the air, and so there is a plane that's up there that just really never needs to land. They don't really say too much about it, why that's the case. You kind of could assume, maybe some solar panel power or something like this. But it's flying up there in the Wild Blue Yonder. And, they're kind of more the good guys, They're up there. And meanwhile, there's bad people that, that are on the surface that have to go get fuel, whatever. But they've got flying machines. But they want to take this aircraft, to basically it's to survive. They know that their lifespan is limited, the longer they stay on pretty much the mainland, if you want to say.
And are they running out of resources as well, like fuel?
There is an issue too of fuel because there's only so much fuel in certain areas, and they really are about to take out the particular, what was its word I'm looking for? Use up the mine that they had that was providing a lot of the fuel. So they feel like they do need this aircraft to survive. But they're basically the bad guys, and there's some history there between our good guys and bad guys a little bit too that they met up before in the past. But that's really the basic gist of this. There's some other things that are in there. We talk a little bit of the, some basic stories that are out there. It's basically a good, bad, post-apocalyptic thing. You've got this one guy who finds his way onto the ship because they're needing extra help. And of course he's a traitor, and radioing into the bad people, for where the aircraft's at so they can go track it down. But, you can kind of see some of that stuff coming, a little bit of the, hey, the people on this aircraft all have the family feel and look out for each other, and the bad guys don't care. You got the big head bad guy who somebody tells him bad news, and he slices them apart or, doesn't do things. So, that whole, what was it, acceptance versus, ruling by fear aspect. But, having said that and, falling into certain tropes, it still runs really at a good speed, a good pace, which we talked about before. I like those things that, it's running. It's not expecting to spell out every single thing. It's going with you as the reader and just trying to be a bit of a action adventure type of story. And I overall enjoyed it. The art's really good. Maybe the coloring a little bit, or maybe the printing with this, it's very dark, which, it's a bit of a darker story with that post-apocalyptic thing, but it just, some cases I just feel like I don't get the detail that I would like to see because of how dark some of those lines are, and the detail that maybe the artist put into it. But overall, I enjoyed it. It's got some good character development and just kind of a fun story. That can't say it's real original, but it feels enough of it by pulling certain things in there. And I think the way that some of the designs, say, of the aircraft and the individuals are, that it gives it this kind of just, hip feel. I don't know what it is, but I liked it. Good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. Like, everything Scott said is true, and what I really liked is I thought it had a really good characterization, and you start to, like you said, the one good ship, they're all about family, and they're kind of like a tight-knit crew. It almost has like a Serenity feel, almost. Yeah. I would got like this crew, and they all kind of known each other for a long time, and they're kind of outcasts and kind of on the run. But they do a real good job of establishing those characters and giving them some emotional weight, and you kind of understand their motivations. And so it's only like 6 issues, but I think in that 6 issues they do a good job of just making all the characters feel kind of like lived in, kind of real, and have a lot of dimensions to them. Like, they're not one-dimensional.
Yeah,
They're
and
three-dimensional.
there's not a crazy amount of characters, with
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
You've got it in there, and he focuses on a core, like half dozen or something
Yeah.
like this. But that really allows, a good buildup, I think, of those characters.
And I think one thing that's hard to do in comics is like car chases, and like aerial battles are like really hard to do too, and actually make them make sense. And I think they do a really good job with the storytelling and making the.
I would say for the
battles
most part, there's some aerial battles there towards the end. I think that get a little
too chaotic,
where you're like. But I think, for me, especially by that point of the story, I think I was pretty well engaged that
it didn't
really
matter.
Yeah, it really didn't matter too much.
Yeah.
You could get the overall gist, but there was a little bit of. Just not quite knowing how the hell that happened, or how this person get from there to there, something to that effect.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. The story starts they're recruiting like a new guy or whatever, and they're recruiting someone to be. They have a name for it. I can't remember what the name
Gunner
is.
or something like that.
Something.
No, the gun. I think it's just gun.
Yeah, it might be. Anyway, so when these ships are like attacking this giant airship or whatever, they have these guys that are like just on like chains that they like launch, and the guys like jump like from a plane onto another plane with like hooks and just tear up the planes. Like that's what they're called.
Yeah.
And they have like jetpacks and stuff. So they basically launch themselves onto a plane, tear it up, and then try and like make it back to the carrier or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Just like
it's got some cool dynamic action to it.
just like the last Road Warrior or whatever. Those dudes that
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
bounce
but
back and
yeah,
forth on
But
yeah,
the catapult or whatever.
Yeah,
Fonda.
kind of like that, but more.
But now you're in the air.
You're in the
You know,
air,
doing
so
this.
yeah, no, that's pretty cool. So it's got a lot of cool stuff. If you like Mad Max and you like.
That's what I
aerial
was gonna say.
stuff,
Like,
pretty
it's so
cool.
weird. Like everything we're talking about tonight is all like going to different things, and it's like it was like Waterworld / Mad Max, right? Because
It really, I could definitely say some of that
like,
Mad Max. Except for I felt like even more so, it has more than Mad Max. I feel like a lot of the visuals are more steampunk type of look. But
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.